Everybody comfortable?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Victoria, thank you. Not just for being here today, but for doing this twice. So a little bit of background context. A background context that's redundant, as is having Victoria here, because the first interview we ever did was with Victoria. It was over Zoom, and I'm going to call both of us out. I think you either didn't press record. I also didn't route the mic correctly, because this was like the first interview. We had sent you a mic, and that was confusing. We did not give you good directions. So it was like a technical snafu, and we had a whole episode that we loved, that we wanted to be the first episode, and we couldn't use it.
Yeah,
so
we were heartbroken.
And since then, we've had all these people commenting, like, when are you going to get Victoria?
Yeah. How come you've had this person from you, but not Victoria? We're like, we know, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to us either.
And so then I was like, once we realized that we couldn't use it, we really tried. You know?
We really tried.
And we were trying not to be like super precious about the audio quality. We were just like, all right, can we use this? Because it would be crazy. There was at one point we were going to have me. When we thought your audio was usable, I was going to re-record all of my audio as though it was spontaneous, which...
What a great acting talent.
Exactly.
Honestly, I was like, yeah, I guess I can do it. I mean, I'm sure I can do it. But I was thinking of those 2 hours. I was like, man, this is going to be like really... But anyway, so I finally texted Victoria being like...
Tail between his legs.
Yeah, is there any
very
chance?
long blue block. I was like, I'm really sorry. But anyway, so Victoria has graciously agreed to come on again. And so what I did was I didn't listen to any of the old stuff. I was like, I'm going to let myself forget about as much of that as possible. And we're going to do take 2. Yeah. But it's not just going to be the same old, same old. It's going to be...
No, that was our first interview, so...
We were, frankly...
Awful.
Really underperformed.
Yeah, actually, we were bad
I wasn't going to
interviewers.
say anything, but...
Thanks, Victoria. This will be a better experience
She
for
actually
everyone.
purposefully did not record.
She was like,
She
I can
recorded,
tell.
but she was like, I'm not sending you this audio.
Actually, and we were getting really granular with because we were like, this is
Whose
about middle school,
poster
right?
was on your wall?
Yeah,
I think we only asked you about middle school and every detail.
Yeah.
I really don't. It sounds like me. Like I believe that I did not press record, but I don't remember the conversation at all.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah,
Today will be
start
fresh.
Good. I mean, it was at this point like what, a year and a half ago. So
It was a long time ago.
Wow,
Maybe 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you doing now?
Good. Yeah.
It's nice. We haven't been able to do that many in-person interviews, and Victoria is here shooting a film.
A film called Pony Boy.
Pony Boy.
Mm-hmm.
Here in New York. And actually, usually
New
Nava-
Jersey, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you're doing a New Jersey accent, which we won't ask you to do. But we see the nails, so that's something that
Yeah.
you can tune in for bonus content for. I feel like such a shill. Go to our YouTube channel.
For Victoria Pedretti's first look.
Pedretti.
Yeah, I was like, wait, are we going to acknowledge that?
Victoria Pedretti's beautiful nails.
Okay. So, and then also just knowing what it's like at the end of a shoot, I just want to honor, I don't know what you've had to do, but it's hopefully this will be gentle, and you don't have to feel the need to perform. This is hopefully what we always do is we go through a session, and I think we've gotten feedback that it's like it can feel somewhat therapeutic reflecting on this time. Mm-hmm. So maybe just let's start off, as Nava likes to say, paint us a picture. Think of what has brought you to the parts of your career now that you love. How did that start then? Who were you? What were the things you were going through? Is it a pass? It's a pass.
We did tell her she could pass on any question.
No, take it. We could talk about
We actually have a series of questions about you. No, this is serious. We have a series of questions about you. If you want to start there, because we can reorder it in the edit. If that's like a warmer start,
yeah,
you let us know. Do you want to start talking about those first?
I mean, I don't. It's not like I think about that time all the time. So I feel like it does take it. I'm also like as you said, I'm in
It's
a
a lot.
state.
I
So
know.
like I'm like takes me a while to process things. People were asking me things on set yesterday, and it was taking me like a good 30 seconds to be like processing the question before I
That's
answer.
fine.
That's
yeah.
good, yeah.
Can I
Take
ask?
time.
So this is so we can either use this or not. I remember you were reading, and again, if this is too personal, totally cut it. But this will at least provide some context for something else we'll talk about. Season 3, I think, you were reading a book that has now become very popular by Gabor Mate, who we're actually going to have on the show.
No fucking
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's how I
Shut
felt.
up.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
shut up.
I know. No. It's honestly, I'm reading his book now, The Myth of Normal. And
Yeah, me too.
But so Gabor Mate in these last couple of years has become. She's not. Nice. It's a giant book to carry
She
around.
even has the book
We can phone you
jacket.
Yeah.
in for that interview if you want.
Yeah.
Victoria.
Oh my God, I will.
You'll be our special guest.
Yeah. So,
I'm a fangirl.
So, yeah.
Love that.
And I think this is becoming increasingly common. I mean, he's a really. By the way, I think he believes in what he's trying to share so much that he'll go on any podcast like
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah.
when we got him,
We're not
we were
special.
Like, really? Wow. We can get Gabor Mate? Okay.
He's a great speaker.
He is.
Yeah.
But you were reading a book that, again, has now, I think, like caught fire. I hadn't heard of it. And his name sounded vaguely familiar to me then. But anyway, it's called Scattered. And I know there's so many people who like have felt seen and identified by this book. I've heard him talk about ADD or ADHD like sort of more marginally when he's talking about something else.
Yeah.
So he references, and I just remember you feeling really encouraged by that. Can you maybe, because what you were just saying was like, it's to show up for an interview and to do what we do as actors is actually, it takes so much focus. And it's a discipline. It's a craft, but it's also a discipline. And it's a practice no matter how much raw talent you have. And I think, as actors, what we often do is we kind of have to plumb our personal lives for better or worse. And sometimes actually I think it can have great benefits. Sometimes I think it can have it can be too much. And it's just like, whoa. So I'm just curious, like, is there anything from when you were reading that you can share? Like what? Hang on.
I think you can get there. Yeah. I believe in you.
My read on what he says about this is that to simply call it a disease or a diagnosis or something is it kind of gives us nothing. It's like you describe the symptoms and you say, well, why does the patient have that? Oh, because they have ADD or ADHD. And then you say, well, what is ADD or ADHD? And then you just describe the symptoms. And it's like, it's not getting anywhere. It's not helping us understand. Like, and what he does a lot is he talks about how, where he's talking about something like that or addiction, all these things that typically, I don't know, people like feel like are some kind of negative classification or categorization. What he's doing is he's talking about people having humane responses to an inhumane culture in a lot of ways, right? And so the reason we started this show is because when you are this age going through middle school, part of what's happening, we can talk about it in a way that's comic, which is like the turmoil and the bipolarity of, some hormones, just the roller coaster. But the reality is that what you're having is a person who's coming into maturity and consciousness for the first time, being inducted into what in large part is an inhumane culture. And so when I think of myself at that age, I largely feel like the same person. I feel like the same person looking out into the same world and just getting a little bit better at like navigating it.
Sure.
There's got to be a question in here somewhere. Can you tell us a little bit about 12-year-old, 13-year-old, middle school Victoria?
I mean, through the lens of discussing something like being diagnosed with ADD, like that part of my life definitely made me feel like it was a defining factor in who I am as a person. When you say like, it's a diagnosis, there's a bunch of symptoms, and that becomes like this vicious cycle in which you're not really getting to understand an individual person.
Right.
So people are dealing with you in that way, and I think that can be quite dehumanizing. And it can feel very limiting. Because as you like read in Scattered and as you read in like The Myth of Normal, like people have these lifelong histories that contribute to how they're developing as a person. And I think being able to it's so funny. I'm talking about this and I'm like, oh, Bill Nye on there. And I'm like, girl, you have ADD.
But to be fair, wait a second. For some context, this table is covered.
Yeah, it's very distracting.
So many people's autographs and messages. And I, too, during interviews, I sometimes I zone out and I'm like, oh, Leonard Maltin.
Like I noticed Denzel Washington has been at this table.
Damn. Wow.
It's distracting.
Abby Jacobson.
There's something in Korean here that I can't read.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, I know I'm not alone in that like many kids are dealing with, even if it's not like you're the ADD kid, like you're a problem child, like even that, like definition, like you're disruptive, these kinds of things without thinking about the fact that they're coming from somewhere. As children, we don't have control over our circumstances. I mean, we have different levels of control over our circumstances even as adults. But as children, we really don't have that freedom. And so much of what's creating who we are is a product of the culture that we're living in, the larger culture we're living in, our home lives, our educational system. And so, yeah, I think taking that into account and being able to like think about that more and process that more as we become adults and understand how we became the people that we are is kind of can be kind of fun and interesting and empowering.
When were you diagnosed with ADD or ADHD?
I think I was like 7.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's young.
I was really young. And I think it was because I was so disruptive that they were like, shut her down.
Figure something out.
Yeah.
That is the word disruptive. When you said that, I was like, because when I was a teacher, that was a word that was thrown around so much because it's like, kinder than other words like trouble, like, they're causing trouble or they're disruptive felt nicer, but it is really an intense descriptor for a very young child.
This is like disrupting what?
Yeah, right. A lesson, I guess.
I was inquisitive. I was asking questions. Like when I think back about it, I was really trying to engage in learning. Yeah. But what they want in a public schools, I mean, like this is how I feel about it. Like they're trying to make tiny little capitalists who will
go off.
No, we love it. We live for this.
Go off. Let's talk about capitalism.
Yeah, that's what it all comes back to a lot of the time.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like who will do what they're told and serve the system and not serve themselves. Disregard yourself completely, actually. Disregard your ideas or your thoughts or your feelings that don't exist within the realm of normal. So I get, I don't know what it is to be a teacher and to have the pressures of, trying to get through a curriculum and create a safe space for all of the students to learn collectively because I was very engaged in doing that. But some other kid who's not asserting themselves also deserves to learn and ask questions. It might be a little bit hard for them. There's a lot of ways in which I've tried to understand why these things exist the way that they do. But I do think that there is a problem with not trying to meet kids where, and acknowledge the fact that kids have different needs. The system of, of capitalism that we exist in makes it so, people aren't allowed to be individuals, have differences, and have their needs met, and create a community in which we can support each other, understanding our differences and our strengths.
Yeah. I mean, in the school I worked at actually was one of the best schools in the country at, each class was an integrated co-taught classroom. And so it was mixed. We had students all across every spectrum. And that was they had 2 focuses. One was anti-bias education and the other was to engage all learners. So that's at a school that's doing their best.
Yeah,
you know,
they're definitely trying.
And there's still the disruptive kid.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And I mean, but one of the things we would talk about a lot is coming to a place where we understand we're not trying to teach kids to be independent, but to be interdependent. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what we want as our end goal. Because a lot of the time in education, we use the word independence. Like where we want to meet a kid where they're at so that we can help them to become independent. But we kind of flip the scales and we're like, no, we actually want to be interdependent. It's a beautiful thing to be interdependent.
And I think when we say we want kids to be independent, we actually want them to be individualistic and not like turn to a community but then also support like the existing culture. We might cut this, but I just can't resist. Like, have you seen the Ken Robinson? I think it was at one point the most viewed TED Talk of all time. I don't know if it still is, but it's called Education Revolution, I think. I think you would really like it.
Sure.
I'll send it to Penn and he can send it to you. But he basically talks about like differentiated design for different learners. And I don't remember who she ended up being, but it was either like a lead in Cats or like the premier ballerina at some point. But he talks about this young girl who was always getting in trouble because she couldn't sit still. And they wanted to put her in like, you know, have her go down a level or something. And her mom like advocated for her. And I think they switched her into like a school for the arts, and she became this like incredible ballet dancer. I'm probably messing up all the details, but there's a woman who becomes a dancer.
There's a key detail in
it's
there.
a key detail. We should cut all of this. But I think you would really like that TED Talk because it's basically speaking to what you're saying. And he's so compelling. And it's like you can't educate every child the same way. Not every child is meant to come out and be the same person. They have different talents. Our education has to educate to bring out their talents, not what we think someone should be.
Yeah, I think the system that I grew up in, like arts weren't really supported or like encouraged. I mean, it is very difficult to become successful as an artist, but like I think it's still worth pursuing your passion, which I'm lucky that I had parents that definitely encourage that. But at the same time, I guess if this is about my experience, like a huge part of being called disruptive was that teachers were pressing my parents to medicate me. And so that's something that happened
At
very
7.
early on. Yeah.
You don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but what ended up happening? Did your parents like succumb to the pressure or did they medicate you?
So I was medicated from the ages of like 7 or 8 to like 11, at which point, like, I think it probably really affected the development of my brain, probably. That's why I'm like this. And
You're actually never just like this. It's not. That's actually what I do. You're okay.
And like, yeah, I didn't grow. I didn't eat. I don't think it made me less disruptive.
Yeah.
But I was like on speed and like went through withdrawal when I was like 11. Like it's pretty hard drugs to put a kid on. And also over the course of that, you start to feel kind of like ostracized because like I was like tested into like mentally gifted, but was also in special ed. And it's like a weird identity thing to be like, just like, what am I? And they'd be like, we don't understand what to do with you. And you're just like, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
You know, 11. Like, I'm 11?
That's so hard. Oh, that's wild, Victoria.
So this was in, I want to say Pittsburgh, but it wasn't Pittsburgh proper.
No, I'm from the Philadelphia area.
Yeah, okay.
You're like, please.
We've known each other for a few years, but whatever.
But it was.
I went to college in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Okay. I also do not know my
Northeast.
I don't know my geography
Pennsylvania.
outside of New York State very well.
It's all New
embarrassing,
Jersey.
Actually, I'm just like, it's pretty close. Is it? When it's Philadelphia, do people say Pittsburgh? Or
Are those the same? Is one a nickname for the other?
Very far away from each other.
Yeah, hardly ever been there.
Yeah, I grew up in Bucks County, which is a suburb of Philadelphia.
Well, Victoria, I feel like you've started to sort of hint at this, but I did like do some prep and watch some of your other interviews, and in one of your interviews, something that you said really like, I don't know, like kind of touched me. And you talked about really what you wanted was friends and to feel like you belonged. And that's something that you still long for to this day is to feel neutral about yourself, like not too high, not too low. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering, like, in middle school, did you have friends? Like, how are you with that journey now? Have you found that neutrality? Just how's that all going?
I mean, I think having neutrality is really a difficult, and maybe like something to aspire towards, but never really get to. Like, I don't actually want to be neutral about things, like. But I think it's something. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I want to be a monk or something.
Sounds like I support that.
Yeah.
He was like, yes.
We're talking about monks.
My dad used to say, this kind of goes back to the ADD thing. He was like, you should become a monk.
Really?
Because I was so indecisive. He was like, just have a life where everything's just kind of clearly laid out for where you're supposed to go.
Right.
And I do love to just sit and look out.
Right. But see, that's kind of, I don't know, that's fascinating to me because the last thing that we would associate with
acting,
a performer.
No, I know. I was actually going to say like the idea that someone has trouble, I don't know, sitting still or whatever. The very typical classifications of ADD, whatever. Well, it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting that it's also like manifests.
It's also a sensory thing. Like a lot of us struggle with being overstimulated. So the idea of, meditation is very good for people with ADD and exercise. And also, like, let's be real. Like, Gabor Mate talks about it being something that is a product of, and not him alone, other people as well. But like in that book, talks a lot about how ADD develops from an innate sensitivity that is then, like, as you're developing outside of the womb, certain things are blocked from developing. And so certain parts of your brain and nervous system are functioning probably in the way that would be the most efficient.
I also, I have many family members who are diagnosed with ADHD. I'm 99% sure I have ADHD, but I have not gone to go get a diagnosis because it's so expensive and I don't need to for my work. But from what I've read about it and from what I know from my own experience is there's like a couple things that can like get you to get up and do a task. One is urgency. Like if like you've left it to the last minute and you have to do it, you'll sit down and do it. And the other is desirability. Like if it's something you want to do, you're gonna lock in and not eat, not drink, not do. I think oftentimes people think of ADHD as like maybe flighty or like you can't focus on one thing. Sometimes it does look like that. Often it does look like that. Like you're switching subjects in your mind all the time. But then sometimes it's the complete opposite. You're in like a flow state, which I think is like a misconception about the disorder.
Totally. I'm very passionate about the things that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy diving into that, like, flow state. But then it comes back to the idea that, like, okay, are we dealing with diagnoses or are we dealing with individuals that have an entire health history, that have an entire life of the way in which they've experienced trauma to their physical body or their, like, soul, and how that creates an individual, what you want to deal with within that. Like, I think figuring out ways of, like, coping and functioning in the world is very difficult, especially if you don't have the resources or just an understanding of how these things are functioning. I think a lot of us understand these things on a, like, instinctual level, but we don't necessarily have the language in order to express how we're feeling, what we're seeing, and like working it out. Like, even like I have this thing with me, like just in case I get overstimulated, I can just like touch this. And like I like when I was in like middle school, I would have had so much shame about that. Because it was so. It's like a sponge. Like I'm holding a sponge that has shaped like a fish that has little pokey things on it that you can just
to be honest,
touch.
I really want to.
Here, I'll pass it around. Everybody can touch this.
I want to do that. That's really cool. I really like that.
Yeah, but
So this is really nice, actually.
It's really nice.
My layman's grasp.
Sophie's like, Ben, hand it over.
My layman's grasp of what is behind a lot of what Gabor Mate is saying, and what I think we're loosely talking about here is like there's some. Okay, so I would say the question at the end of the show that we always ask often comes back. The answer is always individual, but there's always a universal thing, which is like basically wanting to say,
what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Yeah, what would you say to your 12-year-old self? And I would say like, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just feeling like right now, like there is this essence, you mentioned the soul earlier, like deep down, we want to tap into that because we know there's a level at which we're okay, and then we know there's levels at which we don't. Which we're not, but and I think at that age it's just really emotional. And you know, in the past, Victoria, you if there's something that's always stood out to me is maybe the way you talk about. I don't know what you would want to call it. It's both spiritual and cultural. It's many things, but like your relationship to your Jewish identity and your family as you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that because I think it seems to have informed like your creativity and it informs. I don't know, a lot of things. Do you feel comfortable mentioning it?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess it was like just from the way in which I was taught to relate to my identity, it has a lot to do with like a sense of duty in terms of cultivating healing in the world and prioritizing life above all else. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have a unique relationship with my Jewish. Actually, it's probably more universal than I know. I just meet a lot of kids and people that kind of had easy access to their identity, or like my mom grew up in a situation in which she where there was a huge pressure to assimilate, and her father wasn't very supportive of her like learning anything about her Jewish identity. So she kind of pursued that later in life when she was in her 50s, and I would have been in elementary school. And so that's kind of where I started my like religious education. But before that, I had like a deep cultural education, learning about my history and everything like that. But I don't know. A lot of it comes back to like the story of Exodus for me too. Like this idea that like, what is the line? I can't remember. It's like
from the Old Testament.
Yeah, from the Old Testament, where it's like
I don't have it off book.
Okay. Some people really got it right in their back pocket.
It's amazing. When people do, I'm like, wow.
Wow. Yeah. But something like, we should never treat people like strangers in our land because we were once strangers in Egypt.
Wow. Wow, I love that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Which is like about community and peoplehood that goes beyond like, I don't know. Some people have an understanding of Jews being very like exclusionary, which might be true about some like religious practices. But in general, I feel like there's a duty of like, you know, raising up people, you know, we're a wandering people. I feel like Passover is a conversation about refugees all over the world that we retell every year. And so these things just kind of got into my brain as I was growing up. And I'm very proud to be Jewish. And I'm, you know, happy to be able to like pass that sense of, I don't know, pursuing justice.
Did you feel that was that specifically like, I mean, justice is something now that we think about a lot. It's like it's a word that is used, I think, a lot more culturally, like in pop culture, you know?
Yeah.
Do you feel, and I am, I don't know, like part of the ethos behind this show, like we wonder about how kids in middle school are thinking about this stuff, and we can see it out there in the world, like how they are
I think more
responding
middle
to
schoolers are thinking about justice now than they were when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, for sure.
And so like kind of go back there, maybe like how were you thinking about stuff like
When
that?
I was in middle school, I was obsessed with the musical Hair. I was obsessed with the civil rights movement. I was like really
mix well.
into social justice, the counterculture, and it made me very unpopular. You know, I was trying to engage with other students about like political conversations, and in the suburbs of Philadelphia,
Pittsburgh, sorry.
kids were like, can you calm down?
Yeah.
Where was that coming from? Like, were you having those conversations with your parents? Or
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was always meant to engage with them. I mean, I guess I also had curiosity, because if I really didn't give a shit, I guess I would have just been like, stop, you know? Like, but I really cared about these things. I thought that they were important and that they affected me, even if I didn't have the ability to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you were right.
Yeah.
So I do want to circle back to that question I was trying to get at earlier. Did you have a close friend? Like, did you have anyone in your class who was like, yeah, I want to talk to you about politics?
Yeah. Yeah. I had one friend, Lily Frankel. We were both really into hair.
That's cool.
Love that. I like that.
We both like were really into talking about like the presidential election. That's when Barack Obama was elected for the first time.
Wow.
And that was all very exciting. And yeah, that's also when I was 13, I went to a Jewish summer camp. And that was kind of the first time that I really felt like I was becoming the person that I wanted to be, and that I had the ability to define myself on my own terms. Like, the truth of the matter is I was partially disruptive because the environment I was growing up in was very chaotic. And I think we don't take that into account with kids enough too, when they're like, well, why are they crazy? And then it's like, maybe they're little people living in, you know, we don't know what they're going home to.
Yeah.
So like there was a lot of chaos there, and being able to get away from that for like a whole month was so healing for me, even at 13. Like, and I remember getting into the car and my parents just being like, you seem different. I was like, I am.
Aww.
And I can't like say enough about those. You know, teachers can do a lot of good. And the counselors that I worked with, I remember me doing something maybe not disruptive, but maybe a little mean, you know? And I remember just somebody being like, why did you do that? You know, and just being asked that question, just being like, I don't know, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know, this is just how I'm being taught to deal with things.
That's actually
you know?
really beautiful.
This is what's
So
being
profound.
modeled for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't have to be that person. I
Yeah.
can be whoever I want to be.
As you were-
Especially when nobody knows who you are. You know, like I went by Tori at summer camp. Yeah.
Wait. Tori or Toria?
Tori.
Tori.
Yeah.
Well, as you were talking, Victoria, and you mentioned disruptive again, I was thinking, oh, wow, actually, disruptive is a really cool thing to be called.
Right?
Like,
Talk about social justice, too.
Yeah, to like disrupt the environment, and well, then it signals to the person in power, in this case, like the teacher, the counselor, whoever, that like something's wrong. Like if someone has to be disruptive, then something's wrong with the environment and something needs to change. So it's actually cool. We should reclaim it.
Yeah, well, I think leadership all over, whether it's teachers or in any kind of working environment, can often struggle to admit that they don't have all the answers.
Yeah,
that's
And I think great leadership is the willingness to listen, you know, because you're there to serve the people you're leading in part. Like, so, yeah, it's unfortunate that so many people take on these roles, but really don't have the capacity to do it.
I also just wanted to point out when you said that someone asked you, that's really powerful, because if they had like shamed you, which sometimes is like the impulse, like being a school administrator, a teacher at points, like you're like, how could you do that? Like that was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
But that might elicit in the person like defensiveness and no reflection on the behavior.
Yeah.
Whereas like you had an opportunity to be like, I don't want to do that. Why did I do that? And that's really powerful.
Yeah. Punishment is, I mean, like, I think learning that there are consequences is very important. Understanding that you ought to take responsibility for what you've done is important. But I think that I think we're moving away from it to the point where sometimes I hear like,
we need a
little bit more punishment. Like, we're just letting these kids do anything. But I think excessive punishment can definitely just shut a person down.
Yeah.
You see that especially with toddlers. It's so clear because like they're just a great example of not knowing, but like sometimes they can like throw something and like really hurt you, you know? And it's like, you know, it is the beginning of seeing like, wow, it would be so easy to take that personally and get upset. And then that couldn't, like, to hold them, to try and hold a toddler accountable for something is like, if you really think about it, it's insane. It just doesn't make any sense. What you have to show them is mercy. Like, that's the best thing, because then they learn how to soothe and be like, oh, it's just like it's
and then once in a while, just put him in a cage. Just, you know, he's really not getting it. Yeah.
We talked about community, or you talked about community, and then we've talked a little bit about friendships in middle school. But I'm wondering, just sort of more personally, as someone who's moved around a lot and thought about friendship myself as an adult specifically, I'm wondering what your experience with friendships has been like throughout your life. How has it evolved? And
yeah, I mean, I think friendship's the thing. That's it. That's what life is made out of, is the opportunity to connect with people. Like, yeah, I'm so grateful for the friends that I've had along the way in my life. But also, like, as somebody who's like moved around and transitioned a lot in my life, there's a lot of friendships that I wouldn't say let go of. Like, they're very still present in my heart, but people that I do not see very often.
Yeah.
But it is special when you get to see those people again, and it doesn't feel like much time has passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think those can really like drive you to understand that you're not so crazy. You're not so unlikable. You know, you're not so. You know that there's people that get it. Like, I don't know. I do think that a lot of us are vibrating on different frequencies, you know, and that we kind of translate the way we speak to different people in order to feel understood and just communicate. Like, it's hard enough, like, trying to figure out how to communicate, because we all have such different frames of reference and a different way that we speak. I mean, we're all, like, right here, we're all speaking English, but that still can make it hard to communicate, you know. That's not it can be easier to communicate with somebody who's speaking a different language sometimes, you know, like the way in which we communicate is really complex. But like, to really feel like you can freely express yourself with another person is pretty profound. And very special. And I've definitely found that, and I have that. I think I have an amazing community.
With your friend you mentioned,
Lily
Frankel. Were you, and you know, you both loved hair. And you both like were you both like little dramaturgs? Were you like little? Was drama becoming a thing then?
Just in case our listeners who don't know what that is, hair is a musical. Yeah. So it's not just like the thing that grows out of your head.
You were really
it was one of the first rock musicals.
Oh, right. Wait, is that the one with
They all get naked at the end.
The movie version is with like John Travolta.
It's not John Travolta.
Is it with Age of Aquarius?
It's with Age of Aquarius.
Yes.
Who is it?
Is it Hairspray? Is that the one?
Is John Travolta?
No, it's not John Travolta. John Travolta is in Hairspray.
Yeah. Wait,
he plays the mom.
Movie?
Yeah,
the movie version. Yeah,
right?
I mean, recent, like 15.
Listen, if Zac Efron's in it, it's recent. Okay, that's like you can't say that's old.
Yeah, the movie.
Good clarification.
I can't remember. I can't remember who it was in it, but I definitely watched it a lot at one point. It's a rock musical. Were we into hair, and then what was
like were you was drama becoming a part of your life then?
Yeah,
Theater?
yeah. Well, middle school was the first time that you could middle school. Yeah. Ready? Middle school was the first time that you could audition for the school musical. And I had waited for this moment.
Really? So it was like you were...
Oh, I was so excited. And they were doing Into the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
That's classic. A great one. Yeah.
Classic. I mean, the first half of it, because it was Into the Woods Junior. That musical actually deals with a lot of very adult things. But Lily Frankel got cast. Oh shit, Lily Frankel comes back again. And Isena, who was my best friend from elementary school, they both got cast. And they were the only, is 8th grade the first year in middle school?
No,
Sixth grade.
Say last.
6th grade. They were the only 6th graders to get cast, and I wasn't. Two of my closest.
Oh, that's hard.
That's tough.
And I was devastated.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
And they also told me that part of why I wasn't cast was because I was like confident. They were like, well, that's not how they said it. Let's this
go
is
back.
crazy.
Yeah, walk us through it.
Talking about an 11, 12-year-old, they said that they felt like I was too much of a diva.
They did not.
Which is something that I heard in college as well, like my freshman year. Like it's weird how like I don't think I was perfect, but I was also 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I was very confident and excited and
Yeah.
passionate about what I was trying to do.
Just for the record and for the listeners, Victoria, you are I can absolutely vouch for that. Victoria is extremely committed.
I thought he was going to say Victoria
is a diva. I was like, what?
Is extremely committed. I really do feel like, grounding the intensity of your character Love on the show You. Those pronouns are always so. It's like when you say either Love or You, it's like it's just hard to be. So we're talking about Love with an upper case, L, and You all caps. Just grounding that crazy. See, here's the thing: is even as I'm about to call her crazy, because the way I talk about Jo is obviously just ridiculous.
No, she's crazy.
Yeah, she's crazy. But like, hats off to you as an artist. I think when you're like on set and when you're playing her, like you identify with her so much, and again, I think that's beautiful. I think the way I view Jo in some ways limits the way I'm able to portray him. Whereas, like you really embrace her, I think, or I don't know. Is it accurate to say that you like embrace your characters? You do something very right.
Yeah, to the point where when I was watching the 3rd season. And we're just like, I think it's the scene. It's in like the first episode, like just starting it, and we're like in the basement, and I just killed Natalie, and we're like yelling at each other. I was like, my mouth is agape.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. I was like, she's so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Because at that point I'm dead, like I have a distance from it. And now I'm watching it and I'm like, no, I was really in it. Like I was really like, these are the circumstances. This is her justification.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I need to say these lines. They need to be felt completely.
Yeah.
Like there's no room to be like
judgmental or analytical
of it. Like that's not my place. I mean, now I have my judgments. Like, I would say she's crazy.
No,
she's a serial killer.
naturally.
Like, she's, but I also know exactly how she got to be how she is.
Yeah, actually,
I have a very soft spot in my heart.
she jumped out with some really like almost problematic.
Yeah.
Like she's
not a serial killer.
This came out.
Made her do it.
We did an episode where like we're talking about the show because so many listeners
It's
asked
out this
questions
week,
about.
actually.
Yeah. And Sophie like had some super hot take, like a shot. Like she was like, "Love isn't really." What did you say?
She was like, Jo made Love this way. She wasn't a serial killer.
Her whole life made her that way.
Yeah. Well,
she sees herself as a victim. She doesn't see a space for her to I think go above her circumstances. She's always looking for justifications to explain what she's doing and what she did instead of doing the hard, disciplined, rigorous work of trying to better herself, for her child, for her life, like she's just like, I'm a product of my circumstance, as opposed to being like, maybe I should try meditating, So true.
Well, I think you played her, particularly in season 3. You were amazing in season 2, of course. But season 3...
Yeah, I mean, it's a feast.
Yeah. I am obsessed with you in season 3.
Thanks.
You did such an incredible job. I think that's why I have such a soft spot for love. Anyway, we'll move on.
Wait, no, actually, I want to say something. So when Victoria came in, I said this off mic because it was totally sincere, that when I was doing research for this show, I wasn't looking for
Mine
them.
was sincere too, by the way.
Yeah.
Does this also mean
All
that you're
sincere.
insincere on mic?
Yeah. Usually it's all for show. I was doing research and like I kept reading reviews about Victoria and they were all positive. I wasn't looking for negative ones, but none came up. Usually you see both. And one of the reviews that really stood out to me, and I think it was not about Love Quinn, and I don't know if it was about Nell or the other character's Blair. What's her name? No.
Danny.
Danny. I don't know if it was
close.
about Nell or Danny. Well, it's the house.
Bly. I got how you got to Blair.
Yeah, that's fine. No, it's pretty good. Good research.
Blair was actually on Gossip Girl.
Yeah, always bringing it back to Gossip Girl. aren't you, Nava?
on Gossip Girl. You're late in Easter, right?
I think it's very good that I never watched that show.
Wow.
I don't think I ever quite realized.
He's like,
we
I
just
feel like
never
the
talked
have
about it.
changed.
Did we ever
I
talk about
assumed you
I
watched
remember when you told me that you were Gossip Girl, and I was like,
Are you like,
whoa.
Wait, sorry.
Now I don't need to watch it.
This review about either Nell or
Danny.
says
Blaze.
that the thing about Victoria is that she, with this character, you feel every moment of anguish and grief, like through, like in its absolute totality. And I felt that way about Love. I was telling someone that there's like a moment in season 3. I think it's when you're watching Joe.
you're just thinking, you're like,
You're
when is she
watching
going to
Joe
come
have
back?
sex with Shalita, that character, and you're realizing
Yeah.
that he's picturing Marianne. You're realizing that he's picturing another
Yeah.
woman, and your face changes from like joy to anguish to anger all in one moment. And I'm like, how did you do that? Yeah, there was a little bit of that too.
Joy?
But I don't know how you did it. Like, how can one person express all of these emotions in 3 seconds?
Go back to Nava. Moving on.
No, but no. Yes, it's called acting.
I'm kidding.
But
I'm kidding. No, that's what we're here for.
Victoria, your face is very expressive.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
But also, we can feel
It
your
is called
anguish.
acting.
your face is not as expressive.
I once had. It's not. It's not.
kidding, I'm just kidding.
It's not. It's actually not. You know what my choice is? Do nothing. Do nothing all the time. Although I did once have an interviewer, I won't name who they are because I've forgotten.
Wow.
They once
Just mad at me. I can feel it.
No. This is real. This is real. So like I am interested in that too, but on another level, it is actually just like it's hard to explain a craft because season 2, I think it was, or maybe. I did have a lot of people asking me like, "How do you do that with your face where you're very serious and then you like?" And I was like, "Who the fuck? You wouldn't fucking ask. You wouldn't ask. I'm trying to think of
You can't think of it because
somebody who's
you
really
would ask.
talented.
I would. Yeah,
My
no, I
question
was
is
just thinking.
justified.
I was just thinking this. I was like, okay, I am a visual artist.
Yeah, she knows.
Nobody can ask D'Angelo anything.
Yeah, D'Angelo doesn't let anyone ask him anything.
No questions.
No, I'm a visual artist, and there are certain reasons why I make certain choices to do, to show something in a certain way. Or sometimes I don't even know that it's happening, and then I'll like watch the video I made afterwards, or I'll look at a collage afterwards, and I'll realize why I did it, and how it makes sense in the end product. So I feel like that's a valid question. Like,
Well, I think what I was trying to get at is just that there's something about the quality of your acting that like it doesn't feel melodramatic. It doesn't feel soapy. But you are playing every emotion, and some actors don't, but you do, and it works. And I don't know why, but it really.
Yeah, Nava and I are going to start a podcast where we just comment on actors with no acting experience
Some actors.
whatsoever.
I mean,
So-
I think I based a lot of my performance on what I saw Penn doing in the first season.
Really?
That's very
Actually-
kind.
No, that's so
very kind.
sweet.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Like, cause you've got the recipe, like you know how to make a character that is insane and yet sympathetic,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And so I think a lot of what I was trying to do was just like match that energy. There you go.
Now he's glad I asked the question.
And I think in terms
I
of
just
being
comically
like,
pointed at Nava. Sorry, I'm explaining for
I think in terms of being like really expressive. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I'm just existing in my imagination. And I think that I can overact sometimes. And I think that that's something that, you know,
you have
like
to be willing to.
Yeah, like
really
I'm just trying to find the balance, you know, and hopefully there is difference from character to character. Like, I think you really need to see all of what Love is experiencing to go on that journey with her, you know. Yeah, I mean, maybe probably training as an actor contributed to it a bit. Like,
and
lessons.
Tell us a little bit about that, because so again, tracing this line, we've got to go back to our brand, go back to middle school. But but you ended up.
I was a diva.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
well, we can omit
that's
that.
where this all
Don't
started.
worry about that. We can. But you do have a lot of training, or I think significant training. You valued that process you went through school, and I really respect that. It's not always the case, you know, and I so maybe tell us a little bit about that. Like, you went to conservatory.
I did.
Yeah, what made you decide to go into acting, and how did you fully get into it?
So, I mean, I think it goes back to even middle school. Like, that happened. Then I was on crew because I was like, I'm going to get as close to this as I possibly can. Like, I really don't have pride about it. Like, I just want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this collaborative process. I want to be a part of this community. Like, every time you do a production, whether it's a show or a movie or a stage play, like, you're building a little community, and it's so enriching. Talk about friendship, connection. Like,
that's why I loved
especially
it.
on an artistic level, right? Like, it's so life-giving. And so I just pretty consistently through like middle school and high school, like, didn't really get the lead. And like, I don't know, I think that set just more fire under my butt, you know, to be like, I'm going to show you. You didn't give me the opportunity, then I'm going to show you. Like, that was really a huge motivating factor,
That's
if
amazing.
I'm going to be honest.
Because that it could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
I feel like
It did not discourage me. I was like, I don't know why you're not casting me. Like, I know that I have something to offer, you know, and I want to figure out if it's not working, like, how I'm going to get there.
Did that confidence show up elsewhere? You know, growing up?
I mean, I think I was probably I'm probably pretty confident now. Like, I know the ways in which I'm insecure, but I sometimes have to realize that, like, in the grand scheme of things, Victoria, you're probably a lot more confident than a lot of people.
Wait, can she finish answering the acting question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you like joined the crew, you didn't have pride about it, you wanted to be part of that world.
Yeah, and then, you know, then you go through middle school, high school. I didn't get into the musicals, but I got into the play.
So you weren't.
Still wasn't really getting cast. Didn't get in the musical, but I got into the play. Didn't really get into the play, but I could do the one act. And the one acts went into the one act competition, but then I won an award at the one act competition. So I was like, okay. Somebody likes me. People are responding. I'm getting laughs. That gets you for sure. I'm getting laughs. I'm getting tears. People are responding to it. That's what I want. That's what I get out of theater and film and television. You know, we have the possibility to have a catharsis together. It's spiritual. It's real, you know, like. And then I was like, wanted to drop out of high school very desperately. I will never forget like being at a Joe's Crab Shack and being like, Mom, let me drop out of high school.
Wow.
To perform?
Probably.
Or is it not totally
whatever,
related?
just to be out of school.
Be out of school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primarily, but also like, yeah, I could just like go somewhere and try to pursue this and figure something out for myself. Like, I thought I was just going to immediately work as an actor. But yeah, I think in high school I started to really be like, I definitely want to be an actor. And then got through high school by the skin of my teeth and wanted to she was like, you could take a gap year. But then I got into one of the best acting programs in the country. And that was again, very motivating. So I was like, I don't want to wait for that. I want to be there now. So then that's how I ended up going to a conservatory program.
And then your first professional job was Nell, right?
Yeah, in the Haunting of Hill House.
That is
Blair.
so unlikely. Blair Waldorf.
Blaze.
On Gossip Girl.
Blaze.
But no, I just feel like that never happens. So how did you go from like no experience to were you like you had to also like land your marks and like I feel like there's a lot of technical stuff that people have, you know, time to grasp. So what was that first season like for you?
I mean, when I think about it now, because I've been kind of processing it recently, like it was quite a luxurious process. We shot that for 9 months, and I mean, I don't think it was luxurious for a lot of people, but honestly, I mean, my character feels very present in it, but I honestly am mostly just in one episode. But like we were doing like numerous takes from many different angles. It was all very well planned and constructed, where as an actor, you know, by the time I was showing up, the focus was really on the performance. You know, there weren't people adjusting lights. Like our director, Mike Flanagan, ran a very tight set that created a lot of safe space for actors to do that. I also had the opportunity to watch playback, which I really enjoyed. I learned a lot from that. I remember when I first got to you, and I was like, "We don't have playback."
Yeah,
you're like nobody has playback. What are you talking about?
What is playback?
Victoria?
Is it just like after you do a scene or after the day?
Yeah,
but at what point is it like right after the scene?
Well, I usually, I mean, it depends. I would never watch playback while I'm doing a scene, but it was great to help me learn in terms of like watching it after the scene was done and be like, because it's never as bad as I think it is. You know, whatever I've come up with is 10 times worse in my head. So it usually puts me at rest. A lot of people don't let actors watch playback, especially because I don't know.
Well, I can see how. I mean, especially even this last season directing, I can see why across the board it's hard to because like I remember when you were able to watch playback a few times, probably for some kind of technical reason.
I don't remember that. I don't think I ever was. I think they talked about it, and
the reason I remember it is because I just remember you demonstrating in some way that it helped you and it didn't get you in your head.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Whereas I would think that some actors, it gets them in their head. I also found when I was directing without a lot of playback, first of all, which was maddening, but we didn't have time for it. And so that is what it is. But it went both ways. Sometimes I would see it and I'd be like, oh, if I had just had playback, I would have known to just move the camera just a little bit to the left and down, and just boom down just a little bit, and then suddenly you have a shot. Otherwise, and so now I know that like take doesn't have an opening shot. So I got to use, so anyway, but without getting technical. But I think that what playback means for an actor is either, oh, I see kind of where it's going wrong. Let me just do another, and it's better. Or playback means, oh, is that what I'm doing? Oh, is that what I look like? Oh, is that? And then so I think it either helps you because you can use it as a tool, or it completely hinders you because then you become self-conscious, and it really depends on the actor. And
have you had that experience of being able to watch it while you're shooting a scene?
No, not as an actor.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. It's very unusual, but it was present on. That was a possibility on Hill House. It was also the shots were so
specific, right?
So specific.
Yeah, you need
like
it when the camera works.
Continuity
like
was so intense, and like working under those kinds of restrictions, I find a lot of freedom actually, and I really enjoy it.
That is that. I think it's almost like the more, restrictions, constraints, whatever you want to say, the more everything is like intensely rehearsed and specifically placed as an actor. Sometimes it is liberating because then you are allowed to be fully present, you know, and you don't have to worry about everything working.
Victoria, you mentioned that you think you're probably a pretty confident person, or more confident than most. And I mean, I've made it clear how incredible I think you are. But because you were straight away on such big shows, I'm wondering if you ever dealt with a feeling of imposter syndrome or not feeling like ready.
Yeah, especially about being famous. Like I didn't really want that. So it took a long time to accept that was a reality that wasn't going to change.
Being famous.
Yeah. Because you're just exposed, you know. Once you have exposure, people know who you are. They're not going to forget. I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
The young people might not know,
Right.
but like the people that really like took in the work that you did are probably not gonna.
Yes, I know exactly.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
We can cut this too, but it's interesting because before you came, Penn and I went to get lunch together. And when we walked out of the building, this girl jumped. She like gasped and jumped. And I thought it was funny because I forgot that Penn, I often forget that Penn is famous. I don't know why, because people always recognize
Sophie
him.
forgets that I'm an actor.
I forget that he's
with that
famous. And
face
for a
yours.
second, I was like, why did that girl just jump when she saw Penn? And then I like laughed. And so I asked Penn about it, kind of like, I was like, oh, that was kind of funny. And he got somber, like the mood changed. And then we had like a brief conversation. He was just talking about like, it's always hard. Like it's not something that he enjoys,
It's not something that anybody really is meant to be subject to, I think, in a way.
And let's be like, I'm gonna be real. Like I was made fun of in school. So when a bunch of people are all snickering, looking at me in a corner,
it makes you feel awful.
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. No, I know. It's
No, honestly, someone
That's
actually.
really helpful to hear, yeah, because you wouldn't assume that.
Yeah, we were on the train over here today, and I was also very aware of like the surroundings, and there was a girl probably like 21 or something,
the
and
one sitting right there behind you. Yeah.
No, not behind me, to your left, and she was like filming Penn, and like and then like looking at her phone, and that's actually, I didn't realize it, but that's what it felt like. It felt, for her, she's probably just like excited, but it came across as like mean. It's like, I think it probably brings you right back to middle school where it's like, you don't know what someone's thinking or who they're sending it to.
Into this show.
It's like, who are they sending that to?
Yeah.
What are they saying? Like, what are they thinking about me in this moment?
And here's the thing, it's never about you. It's always about you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to slip into it every now and then. See, what that was deflection.
Yeah. I think we all picked up on that.
Yeah. It was subtle.
No, you did not, Sophie.
Subtly.
No, just to say, like, I feel for you guys. For that.
Well,
Some people love it.
Yeah, I mean,
Some people
Which is
love
true,
it.
some people do love
and
it, yeah.
some people think that that's the life anybody would want.
Yeah.
And you became an actor so you could be famous, duh. And it's like, no, I thought I'd work on some stage that nobody was going to see, and I'd impact the people that shared space with me.
Right.
And it wouldn't be about that, I took jobs because they were jobs. I got out of college. I didn't have money. I took the jobs that came to me, I wasn't being particularly discerning in that way either.
Yeah, and then you were thrust
also,
at you very suddenly.
You was not a huge hit when I signed on for it. Like it hadn't gone to Netflix yet, and it hadn't blown up on that platform. So I didn't know that it was going to be such a huge thing.
I didn't know that.
No.
That's when you signed on.
No, it was still, there was like the plan of that, but it hadn't been released. Yeah. And so it hadn't blown up. Netflix was the space for it, not Lifetime, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. Victoria, you just mentioned that kids were mean to you. And so when someone's like standing in a corner looking at you and laughing like that, it brings you right back to that place. Would you mind sharing an example of how? Because I know that that's something that our listeners struggle with a lot too. And they might feel, I don't know, a relief knowing that someone like you has also gone through it.
Yeah, I feel like a really good example of this that happened in middle school was that I think it was math class. I was in math class, and I remember these people sitting over there snickering, looking at me, and I was like, what's going on? And then this guy gave me I hadn't had any romantic interactions at that point, really. And this one kid gives me a little phone number, and he says, "It's my phone number, call me." And we had lunch right after that, so I went to lunch, and I walked out of the lunchroom. I remember standing in a hallway, or maybe it was the next day and he hadn't come to school or something. I don't remember, but anyway, I was in school and I called the phone number, and it was the rejection hotline.
Oh
No.
It's so awful. That's so even that exists, number one.
Yeah.
That's so awful, Victoria.
But also, it's so unprompted. It's like
it really came out of nowhere.
Somebody it's like a live action troll, like internet troll. That's so unfair.
Yeah. I think, even since elementary school, I think because I was so passionate and so obsessed with justice, it was very easy to get a rise out of me. Like, 'cause I would just get so excited about things, and I was like pretty serious, and like, I would get really, really loud about like the things I was passionate about. Like when everybody was calling everyone gay, like I'd be like, don't say that, and like people loved it. People were like, ha ha, look at you caring about things. Like I think it was also very in fashion to be apathetic at the time. Yeah.
It's less so now, I think.
I think so.
It's still it's hard for tides to change that much that quickly, but it does seem like it's changing.
Yeah, I feel that way, but then I like went to my nephew's soccer game.
Yeah.
And
don't go to a soccer game. You're not going to find it there.
And I was looking at the kids in high school, and I was like, they literally look like, has the fashion changed actually that much?
Crocs,
no, it's right back to where it was.
Everybody looks exactly the same. It was so weird. I was like, did that guy never leave high school? I think I went to high school with him. Yeah.
Can I ask how you feel around, this is a question for everybody at the table, actually, how you feel around middle schoolers and high schoolers? Because I think the joke is that as a class of people, which we all go through, like we are the most awkward and sensitive and self-conscious, and yet somehow exude something that makes adults fully like
cower.
Oh shit! There's those high schoolers. Okay, just
nervous.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel around people that age?
I don't know. I don't feel that. It depends. I don't know. I was just hanging out with high schoolers, and it was like pretty fine. I want them to like me, but I don't want everyone to like me. Mm-hmm. No, that's not true. I think that I don't think I can generalize in that way. Middle schoolers, maybe I'm a little scared of.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
For me, it's the opposite. Middle schoolers, because I actually do know a lot of middle schoolers in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I feel that actually they are really sweet, the ones I know. And they're like easy to please. They're eager. They want to be around you and like learn from you and talk to you. But then it's high schoolers that really, and this has not always been the case. I have been around middle schoolers before as an adult and been like extremely nervous because I just want them to like me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like one toe out of line, one like misstep, one old reference, and it's over. And they know that I'm too old and it's over for me. But now I feel like middle schoolers are really sweet and lovely to be around. High schoolers, I feel that same feeling. Nervous and like I'm gonna out myself as being old and uncool.
Yeah.
I know you guys.
I haven't been around middle schoolers recently. But there's like one, hi Kenzie, if she listens. But besides Kenzie, I haven't spent much time with middle schoolers lately, and I wish that I would because I love them. So I was a teacher, and I taught elementary for one summer, and I've taught middle school, high school, and university. And university was the easiest. High school was my favorite in terms of like preparing, but middle schoolers like have my heart. Like I love middle schoolers. I love being around them. And to me, like 8th grade and even 9th grade, which is the first year of high school, is like the last year in the U.S. where they'll be really sweet to you. As a teacher, they'll hug you. They'll like tell you they love you. Like it's just like such a loving relationship. And then once they hit 10th grade, it's like they're cool. If they like you, like you're the cool teacher, but there's none of the like loving affection. It just kind of ends. And it probably should, you know.
What's the age?
I would say 13, 14 is the last year that I experienced. And I taught middle school and high school at the same time one year. And there's just a big difference. It's 1 year, but there's a big difference in how they treat you. So yeah, I totally saw that sweetness. And I think middle schoolers are the funniest, which is why I wanted to start this podcast. Because they're so funny. They do absurd things. And like, I love it. I love being around middle schoolers. I need more of it.
Yeah.
I don't actually spend, like when I'm thinking about it, I don't spend time around middle schoolers or high schoolers ever. So what I'm saying is
you
based
just want to go hang out in middle school?
Should we leave?
Careful.
Is really based on nothing. So, I mean, I feel like I just try to deal with people as people. And I'm often I'm often very consumed with what I was thinking about at the time. Like, I like if they're doing anything weird, I'm just like, oh. Or if they're being mean, I'm just like, oh no, they're sad. You know, like I feel like that's my response. But what about you, Penn?
I mean,
you're living with a middle schooler.
Yeah. My stepson is he's gonna be 14.
Wow.
soon.
Wow.
Of course, half of it was during a pandemic, so there's this aspect of like such a unique time to be in what we call middle school. But if it's not even spent in a school, what's the thing we call it? What's the
middle time?
This period of adolescence or
Tweendom.
Tweendom. Yeah. And then part of it is, well, I don't know. I mean, I think like what you were just describing, Sophie, about this feeling of nervousness and awkwardness around, these like certain age youth. That's in some way the way I feel every time posting on social media. It's like, all right, just walk through the hall really quickly and just don't look at anybody.
That's so funny.
Such a good analogy.
I think that's maybe the way that I felt previous to getting on TikTok, which is interesting that it's like, I did not anticipate it at all to feel this way, but it feels somehow a lot more relatable. It feels a lot more like commenting makes more sense. Whereas like, I don't know, again, the comment section of an Instagram post feels like the hall or the lunch where everybody's just like talking about, well, and in this case, it actually is about you. And it's, and so it's a very, in Hollywood itself isn't, I think, beyond, if it's lucky, it's at the age of maturity of high school. And it isn't really gone beyond that. I think there's so much about it. There's so much about it that is just so consumed with optics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way that things appear and how if you're not aloof, but just certain people just, when they say they have that it factor, I mean, and, a lot of times it has with the way they look or whatever. Yeah. So, it's just, there's, to me, the beauty of it somehow is like, the older you get, the more you can accept the lightness of life, the sweetness of life. And yet, I have this personal conviction. Part of what we think about in this show is like, if we can understand why it takes so long to get there, what could we be sharing with our youth, like when they're about to go through that, when they are going through that, so that like it doesn't have to be such a long boomerang back to sweetness, back to lightness.
And it is something you're going back to. Like, I do think that. Yeah.
I mean, you're going back to it with growth. So it's like, you're going back to it and then it's wisdom. And I mean, maybe actually that's the beauty of age is that maybe it's that reclamation. Reclamation of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
think so.
We have about 10 minutes left, and I do know that fans of the show really wanted to ask a few you questions. So are you guys down if we ask you a couple of questions about you?
Sure, ask questions about me. I mean, that's what this is.
Yeah, we're here to interview you.
The show.
Right? Yeah. She gets it. Victoria's playing with me. Okay, so the question that I saw that I thought was interesting is fans want to know how you guys felt about the I wolf you scene, and was it hard to keep a straight face filming that?
I fought it a lot. I really didn't do it.
I don't recall struggling with it. I mean,
no, I think there were many moments where I was like, why are we doing this? And you were like, Victoria, just do it.
Oh, wait, that's the exact inverse of my relationship with Penn. Penn is like, it's true. He's like, why are we doing something? Like, Penn, just do it. Yeah, just trust me.
Press post.
Yeah, today I'm like, I'm going to hit post for you.
Yeah, today she had her finger over the button.
To do it. So funny.
That's funny.
Interesting. Why did you fight it?
Because it's ridiculous.
Well, and the fine line between the ridiculous and iconic is...
Yeah. Because that's something people say to me now. Yeah. They'll come up and they'll be like, they're the first person that ever said it to me. And they'll be like, I wolf you. And I'll just be like, okay. Oh my God. Yeah. What the fuck is my life?
Is a social construct! You don't know me!
You don't wolf me.
You know what's interesting about that episode? There was an entire wolf cut out of it.
The wolf
like
didn't
an
make
animal?
it? I have pictures of it.
There was a scene where Joe gets bitten.
Really?
by
That was
the wolf.
cut out?
They cut out the entire, and I was limping.
We had a wolf.
Guys, I was limping
don't
through the
remember that.
entire latter half
And
of the
there was, like,
episode.
nobody knew
and
why.
they edited it around. Either I'm limping and everybody's like, "That's a choice," or the limp is just gone. There's a scene
Is that
where
when you cut your finger? You're limping? No.
Huh?
No, there was a wolf.
No. So the wolf is still there, but the wolf was featured so much more prominently in the episode. And it was cut out because it was so hard to get the wolf to do what
There was a
we
real
needed.
wolf?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was so hard to get the wolf.
And because of reasons that are obvious, like they couldn't really get they couldn't have the wolf actually lunge at me.
Oh my God. I hope they didn't try.
No,
Like, let's
so
see how this
so
goes.
basically they couldn't really. What it came down to is like they would have needed
Trainers
hundreds of thousands of
and-
dollars for like a CG wolf to come for me, and so I think it just so basically they edited around this whole story point, which was like Joe gets bitten by the wolf, and that is a thing, at the.
Is that before or after I Wolf You? When was it? Was it what prompted the I Wolf You?
I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay, Victoria.
I'm like,
In
what
this week's episode, the one that's out this week, so in last week's episode, we asked Penn what his favorite scene was to film with you. And he said it was the dinner scene, the final scene in season 3. And I want to know, what was your favorite scene to film with Penn?
Of course, I didn't have to answer in front of her.
That's true. That's true. Penn, would you leave the room for a moment?
Sure, yeah, it's fine. I got to relieve our nanny anyway.
She's
I'm
whispering
just
to
saying,
me.
like, you guys can ask them too. I don't have to ask all of them. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we did a lot
We
of
did so
scenes
many. I mean,
together. My God.
Mine was like a little bit of just a quick hot take. I was like, okay, because what's favorite even is like so subjective. It's like why?
Right.
Because
For what? There's
what I
like-
liked that scene for
Yeah.
was that, well, first of all, a lot of times I don't have lines.
That's true.
People don't realize how often it's another person and
Carrying all the weight.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, doing all of that good acting. So, right? Navs, all of those facial expressions where she takes you on an emotional journey.
Finally.
Where she's doing.
Someone on this
what
show
an
is making
actor
me feel
does.
something.
Yeah. What I liked about that scene was, I don't even particularly love my performance. I just liked that there was such a give and take, And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, episode 2, all those therapy scenes.
Oh, that was fun.
That actually, I'm revising my answer. Those are, to me, that's episode 2 of season 3.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe those. That was really fun.
What was fun about that?
Well, that we were talking. Like, they were real, like, scenes in which you're talking and responding, and, like, there's dialogue and there's a journey through the scene. It's not just starting in a heightened place. I always love scenes in psychologists' offices.
Yeah.
Across the board on everything. I think it's a great space to explore characters with their guard down a little bit. But yeah, I really loved the end of season 2 too. Some of those were really fun. Especially when we're like yelling at each other, and I think it was. I think when I'm just like, you were looking at a fantasy and like we're going back and forth about like finally being like really open, and that's what I really hoped that season 3 would be, and there was so much of like that real like real confrontation that ends up being like deeply funny because neither of them kind of sit on a moral high ground. They're both just trying to be like correct and right in it. Like, yeah, I would say psychologist scenes. Sure.
Here's a question. You once said,
What did I say?
You once said in an interview, "I've never met a ghost,"
Yeah.
which made us curious. Do you believe in ghosts?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's what, I was answering that question. I think when I was saying that, it was because somebody asked me, and I was like, I haven't had an interaction with one, but I think as an actor, your imagination should be like wide open. And I've met too many people that have had those experiences to like disregard them as real. I think that would seem silly to me.
Right. I think that was it for the sort of show questions. So we do have a final closing question, which is if you could go back to your 12-year-old self, what would you say to her?
I mean, you said you would say like you're okay.
My answer is different from that, but what I was saying is that often what comes through is what I hear
when we ask
the way
other people.
What I hear like kind of across the board in some manner is like it's gonna be okay, you know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think I could tell that little girl anything, but like, I think it would be more like you're not okay, you know? And the fact that you feel like this is not okay is a good sign. You know, like, it can be, just like, I feel like more I'd want to listen.
I like that.
Yeah, because I think that's what that person needed, was somebody to listen as opposed to tell them what to feel.
That's so profound, Victoria.
Yeah, that resonates.
Yeah, I love that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank
you
so much for being here.
Yeah.
Such a
Thanks for
delight.
having me.
Thank you for coming back.
Again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Penn, do you think I'm a diva?
No.
I'm down.
I was just visiting my husband's family, and we were talking about how, you know, people sometimes end up in partnership with people who remind them of their mother or their father.
Yeah.
And
sometimes.
yeah, always. And
I'm sure that's our unconscious. Just
my mother-in-law was like, I think we're quite similar. And I was like, really? In what ways? She started naming some, and she's like, I think we're both down to earth. And I told David, my husband, about it later, and he just started laughing his head off. He was like, you? Down to earth? And I was like, wait, what? I was learning something totally new about myself. Anyway, that's,
How funny.
That's really
we're both
funny.
divas.
so to answer your question, Victoria, no, I don't think you're a diva. I think Sophie's a diva.
Well, you can't act.
I was hoping you'd say it. I was hoping you'd say it.
And that concludes this podcast.
And this relationship between the hosts.
And me and my husband.
Join us for season 2, where it'll just be me.
What did I do?
You. I'm with the rest.
Too much to name. Sweet. Okay.